Okay, reporting live from my closet. Y'all, I just got off of a coaching call with some of the most brilliant women that I know. The women that I coach are incredible. And what is always fascinating about having these kinds of conversations with women who do not lack skill, who do not lack capacity, who do not lack capability, is that they are trapped in, which is what we do, rules that we have unconsciously agreed to. And so today I want to talk to you about 4 invisible rules that I have spotted throughout my years of coaching that keep us women from moving forward, and what can happen when we actually stop and challenge them. So I've got some notes here and I want to talk you through it. Okay, so the tricky thing about moving through these kinds of invisible rules is that, unlike maybe other rules in life, these rules are disguised as strategic. Sometimes we'll consider the rules that we place on ourselves, the rules that we are abiding by, to be advantageous to our goals and our careers because maybe they are what's gotten us to the place that we're at today. And that changes when we are now beginning to make our own path, chart our own course, and need our own rules. And so I want to talk about the fact that A, these are not personality flaws, and B, what are the 4 most common ones that I see? Okay, so rule number 1, there's a proper way to do this. There's a proper way to do a thing. So I was talking to one of my clients who felt blocked specifically around visibility. She's in a phase right now where she's trying to expand beyond sort of the limited ways in which she's shown up and to grow her business to the place that it is right now. Just sort of operating out of, organizational affiliations, soft referrals, warm relationships, that sort of a thing. But she's had this tug on her to show up online and to do the marketing. And when I had the conversation with her about where she felt most challenged in reaching, sort of building the business that she wanted to build, she said, well, Monique, I feel great about the work that I do with my clients. I feel great actually about the sales conversations that I have with people. I'm not afraid to sell, but it's me showing up visibly that really makes me feel scared. And what was on the other side of that was not skill. Again, it was just about her fear of being seen. And so this rule of there's a proper way to do this, there's a right way to be seen, I'm sure it has shown up in many areas of her life. And I'm sure many of you listening right now can even relate to this. But it was holding her back. It was holding her back from doing the simple steps that needed to be taken and to really do things that made sense for where she was at right now, to not overcomplicate things, to not look at people who are 15 steps ahead of her and maybe are operating with very complex marketing systems and very polished marketing presentation and brand materials and assets and things like that, and to judge where she's at by the distance that somebody else has gone on their own path, their own journey and timeline. And so what I prescribed was some action to take that was unedited, that was raw in real time, that was simple, right? How can we step into simple distribution of our ideas, of what it is that we have to say, what it is that we care about? And so I guess the lesson here is that perfection is often the way that we delay our exposure. And I think seeing me filming here in my closet today, this is my first time doing this. It is at night. I've just put my children to bed. I share my office with my little one who is normally at school all day. So when he comes home at night, he takes his bath and goes to bed. The office is his bedroom. That is where he lives. We have the room sort of split in half. And I said, I really want to record this video. I've made a commitment to show up 5 days a week. I've got to meet myself where I'm at, but I also want to meet my commitment. So I don't need to place a false rule around how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be at my desk. It's supposed to be with my big umbrella light. It's supposed to be with my cool like task lighting and key lighting and all of that stuff and my fancy microphone. That's how it's supposed to be. But today it's me sitting in front of my shoes with a light and showing up and doing the thing that that's going to increase my visibility and to help me feel connected to my goals and to build self-integrity. So rule number 1, again, there's not a proper way to do this. It's just about doing it. Okay, so rule number 2, if I choose myself, I'm wrong. If I choose myself, I'm wrong. There's something icky about making decisions, I think, especially as how we're socialized as women, that prioritize our own desires, that prioritize what feels best and works best for us, when it will impact or involve other people's feelings, other people's expectations, other people's potential, and likely disappointment, right? So when you have a fear of, this is how it shows up, looking bad. I have a fear of burning a bridge, which is a tricky one. Sometimes we'll say, well, I don't want to burn any bridges. Burning bridges, that's a real thing. That is a real thing. But the way burning bridges works is if you do something, you make a commitment, and sometimes we do have to burn bridges, by the way, but you make a commitment and you willfully disregard that commitment with no real cause. What's what I'm looking for? Basically, you don't have a rationale that is strong enough to make any kind of sense, mostly to yourself first, but that you can at least explain to those involved or impacted by your decisions. And when that bridge is burned, it means that there is a lack of a path to walk back over this non-existent bridge in the future. Because, for instance, you want to remain in this industry. For instance, you want to remain at this company within this institution. When you are needing to make a big bet on yourself and you need to cut ties, sometimes it's not actually burning a bridge. It's just severing a tie. And it might go down messy. it likely will, as I said before, disappoint some folks, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Okay. And I also just think that many times the desires of our heart for our own lives are going to be inconvenient for other people. And that can be okay. That can be something that we can cope with. This is not a hard and fast rule in terms of like, just do whatever you want. Have no regard for how this impacts other folks. But when we are concerned far more with how our actions impact others than with how satisfied we feel with ourselves and the lives that we are choosing to live, that's something that has to be examined, because that is also not sustainable in the relationship that you have to yourself. When we say we want to have confidence, we want to have self-trust, we want to have that kind of self-integrity, this eats away at that if you keep it up. Sometimes we do need to make sacrifices, but sacrifices are temporary, and temporary can't be constantly extended. There's constant extensions on this temporary thing. It's like, I was only supposed to be doing this for, these 3 years or for this season of life. And here we are a decade later. The temporary thing seems to have gone out the door. Okay. So, we can both care deeply about people and still not organize our lives around their comfort. And that is what is called for, that belief, that shift in mindset, to challenge this rule that if you choose yourself, you're wrong. Okay. So let's move on to rule number 3. And I love this rule. Rule number 3 is I need to feel confident before I move. I need to feel confident before I make moves. So in this instance, I have a client who is understandably very concerned with prestige, personal and financial security, and impact. And all of these things are kind of tugging and pulling at her all at once. And because of that, she's trapped in this analysis paralysis, and it is causing her just to basically wait for certainty, because it's like, either I stay in this sort of quagmire of impossible choices because nothing is going to yield this sort of perfect calculation that I'm hoping for, or I just stay put, right? I stay in paralysis. I just stay stuck. So it's like you just keep bouncing back and forth between your current reality that you want to evolve away from, that you want to escape, that you want to build something new from, and or just sort of inner turmoil and chaos, and waiting for this perfect answer, waiting for the certainty that will not come. That will not come. So the reframing that I ended up doing with this client, and this is so common, I think, especially with women who are super high achieving, because you've worked hard to achieve the prestige, to achieve the reputation or the brand association or the things that you are able to throw onto your resume, the education behind you. That was work. That was a lot of work, and it got you to where you are right now. But when you know where you're going next is not a part of somebody's sort of easy blueprint, that you're about to do a little more freestyling in your life. You're about to shape the next version, the next chapter of work and life in a way that is uniquely sort of molded around your desires. The old ways of getting things done, the old attachments have to fall away. And it's a painful and scary process. And we can do that through borrowing some confidence, right? I encourage this client to focus on, creating proximity, and I think proximity and performance outdo perfection every time. So one of the things that I think we can always take is to give ourselves a time-boxed moment, even if it's just like, okay, every other day I'm like, should I stay? Should I go? Should I do the same thing I've been doing before? Should I do something new? And the something new feels very, very scary. I keep considering it, but then it scares me. So I run back to well, I guess I'll just kind of keep doing the thing that I've been doing before, but I really don't like it. And I really want, this kind of thing keeps happening. Why don't we give yourself a time boxed moment? Give yourself 30 days, give yourself 2 weeks, even give yourself an hour, but give yourself some time to say, okay, I'm going to live in this magical land of where it is that I want to go, or what it is that I want to experience, or, whatever the thing is. And put myself in conversations with people who have done anything remotely close to it. Put myself in environments that reflect the way that I might be experiencing this next chapter, the environments that I might be in. Put yourself in those places so that you can begin to actually assess and actually, have some data to build upon, to kind of shift the analysis out of like, is it either this or is that? It's like, okay, well, why don't I give myself something to react to? Put myself in proximity with people who model possibility for me so that I can have something to latch onto, maybe pull myself a little bit closer to shaping it the way that it needs to be shaped. Okay? So we can learn from lived paths, not hypothetical ones, the ones that are coming up in your brain and getting all wild. Find some real data. All right. So rule number 4, for it to be legitimate, it needs to be hard. For it, whatever the it is, to be legitimate, it needs to be hard. Like, we need to feel challenged. We need to feel difficulty. And this is something that I think holds so many of us back, because we have such a strong culture, especially at least in America, around, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and earning everything from your basic health care to your basic dignity. It's like only those who work hard are allowed to have things like healing and clean food and, safe neighborhoods. That you need to meet somebody's standard of effort before you get to receive anything nice, good, loving, whole, warm, anything nice, right? Anything positive. And so this can bleed over into the goals that we set for our careers and the next leaps that we want to make in our lives, where there is a simple path. There are simple things that can be done, but our creative imaginations don't even activate in that realm because we're looking for the hard path. We're looking for, okay, all I need right now is to secure my next 2 clients. What do we start doing? Well, let me make sure I build, a website and a huge social media presence and, get all of my branding and things like that, all these materials together, and start writing case studies and start, reading all these books and listening to all the podcasts and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do research, that we shouldn't be curious, we shouldn't gather data, information, stories. That's wonderful. But that also ends up typically either landing us in paralysis or us just busying ourselves doing all the tasks around the things that we that would actually move us forward, that we actually need to do. When what we could have done was the simple thing, which is what I encouraged this one of my clients today to do, who she herself was sitting with this question around, like, okay, she really just wants, like, the work that she does are pretty large contracts. She's like, I just need like a handful of clients a year, maybe 3 clients in a year. And she's already got her first one. So it's like, okay, I just need to find a couple more. So I asked her, well, start with where you are. Who's already around you? Do, for instance, the women in your sorority or the alum group that you belong to, or any of the social groups, hell, your best friends, do they know who it is that you enjoy working with, the kinds of projects that you want to work on, right? And I think part of where we get caught up in all this, and maybe I'll make another video about it, is our story. We feel like we don't have a clean and crisp way to tell the full story of everything that we do, and having these, like, you know, corporate level, like there's an entire marketing team who has dedicated their lives, their educations, their entire careers to being able to do this together with millions and millions of dollars behind them for, you know, large companies and their products, that we should have something anywhere near that, as opposed to, okay, well, what I do know is that with my current client, that X, Y, and Z has been our process, that, you know, A, B, and C have been the problems that we are focused on solving, and that the intersection between those things and what I'm most excited to do and what I'm most skilled at doing is this, you know. Have you shown up in the social engagements, the social spaces that you're already operating in, telling anybody when somebody asks you, what is it that you do, or what are you working on, what have you been up to? Do you just mention? Do you ever say? Right? These are the simple shifts that we can make, starting from right here where we are right now, that are more than good enough. They don't need to be fancy. They don't need to be difficult to be legitimate. And when I say legitimate, I know part of it is what it is, a triggering word, because it's about how other people perceive what it is that we say that we do, or how other people perceive what they think is going on in our lives or in our work or what we're capable of. But this is about what is effective. And what is effective is typically clear. It is actionable, and it moves now, and it can build momentum over time. 1 or 2 conversations at the next birthday party, wedding, baby shower gathering that you're at, where you just begin to speak about these things. You might only have a sentence or 2 to share. Start with that. Start with that. And that is legitimate. That is effective. Okay? So if you need to throw off the word legitimate, recognize first and foremost if that's something that you're doing in your mind. You're making up this rule that, like, oh, this is illegitimate because I don't have it all fancy and packaged together and it wasn't super hard. First of all, recognize that. But then second of all, if you recognize that legitimacy is not actually what we're shooting for here, what we're shooting for is what's effective, right? What's going to get me into action? What is the path of least resistance? Because the thing is that change is emotionally hard. Change is already naturally very emotionally hard. It doesn't matter what kind of change we're talking about. But when you're talking about an identity shift in your career from who it is you've always been into this whole new space, you feel very exposed. It's a lot emotionally to cope with. And that's very normal. That's very typical. We don't want to pile on now. Let's make it logistically challenging too. Let's make it logistically complex. No, let it be simple. Let it be simple. Always find the path of least resistance, the simple next step that you can take, and obviously the resourcing and the help that the women in my group coaching program are getting, so we can move through these false rules that we may be holding over our lives and what we want to create. If you're stuck right now, I want to encourage you to stop asking yourself, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? Right? And it's because it's almost like this shamey thing that we'll do to ourselves. Instead, I want you to ask yourself, what false rules am I maybe living by? Am I operating by that don't serve me, that are holding me back? What are the false rules? Let me figure those out. And maybe it's one of the 4 that I explained in this video today. And if any of the rules that I shared today do resonate with you, I'd love to hear in the comments, what rules do you feel like have been holding you back? What chapter of life are you in, and where are you trying to go? And what rule would be the right rule, maybe the first one to dig into and to begin to shake off, to begin to challenge and to move differently. My name is Monique Shields. Thank you as always for tuning in. Thank you for joining me in this imperfect setup in my closet. This may not be the last time that I need to do this. Actually, this was kind of refreshing and fun now that we're bringing this video to a close, but I hope that you will subscribe, do me a favor and click that button, and then come back next time, because this is the work I love to do. I hope that this can give you the career inspiration, the motivation that you need to get what you want, girl, to get exactly what you want. All right. See you next time.